The altered scale is the 7th mode of the melodic minor. So if we start the melodic minor on the 7th degree, we get an altered scale. So in step 1, let's play the melodic minor and then the related altered scale. The best way to think of the intervallic formula for the altered scale is to consider it as a chord scale for a dominant 7 flat 5 chord. So for a B altered scale, we're going to pair it with the B 7 flat 5 chord, and we get a dominant 7 flat 5 chord with a flat 9, a sharp 9, and a flat 13. Now the formula is going to be 1, flat 2, sharp 2, 3, flat 5, flat 6, and flat 7. And notice that by using this perspective, the altered scale has no 4th degree. And the steps formula, by the way, is half, whole, half, whole, 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 whole. It's worth noting that the upper tetrachord is a section of the whole tone scale. In step 2, let's play all the altered scales by thinking of these properties. So where can you use the altered scale? As we mentioned before, this is a great scale for dominant flat 5 chords. We can also use it over 7 sharp 9 and 7 flat 9 chords. But its most interesting application is when it's used to reharmonize other dominant chords. Remember, we can always alter a dominant chord to add more tension to it. Also, when we borrow a dominant chord, we always want to alter tensions rather than making them natural tensions. In other words, we can always turn a 9 into a flat 9 or a sharp 9, and a 13 into a flat 13. That's always effective. But the opposite is never true. Replacing a flat 9 with a natural 9, for example, is not effective. And that's why the altered scale is so great. All of the tensions are altered in the altered scale. So it's always safe to replace any dominant chord with an altered chord. Be aware that when replacing regular dominant chords with the altered scale, the flat 5 is the note that brings the most amount of weirdness to your lines. Let's start with a couple of lines that do not make use of the flat 5. In step 3, we're going to play this line. Notice how we're using the flat 9, the sharp 9, and the flat 13, but not the flat 5. And we're resolving it to the 1 major 7 chord. A useful perspective for this line is to think of the flat 2 minor add 9 chord over the dominant chord. So over C7 altered, we're playing a D flat minor add 9, which of course makes total sense because the altered mode is the 7th mode of melodic minor. In other words, C7 altered is the same note grouping as D flat melodic minor. In step 4, let's use the flat 2 minor add 9 again, but this time let's add the related 2 from the major mode. So in F major, we could play G minor 7 to C7 altered to F6 or F major 7. In this line, we're going to work on several concepts at the same time. Over the 2 chord, G minor 7, I want you to think Dorian, and we'll play a section of the Dorian scale. For example, starting on the 5th of the scale, we get. Now, the purpose of these lines is to target a note from the C altered scale. For example, by starting on the 5th degree of G minor 7, we can target the flat 13th of the C7 altered like this. And if we start the Dorian scale on the root of G minor 7, we can target the flat 9 of C7 altered like this. And now we can change direction using notes from the C altered scale to target a note from F6. We can use the flat 2 minor add 9 like we did on step 2, like this. Notice that we're targeting the 5th of F6, C, and if we add a tail to the line, we can also target the 6th of F6, D. And if we start on the root of our 2 chord, G minor 7, and target the flat 9 of C7 altered, we can play this descending line and target the ninth of F major 7. All right, now let's do it in all keys. All right, so now let's think of sections of the pentatonic scale. An interesting property of the altered scale is that it contains an entire pentatonic scale on the flat 5, or the sharp 4. So C7 altered contains an entire G flat major pentatonic scale. So in the next two steps, we're going to take advantage of this property. In step 5, let's use a 4-note section of the pentatonic scale to create a chromatic moving pattern like this. Remember, over a minor 7, we can play the major pentatonic on the flat 7. So over G minor 7, we can play F major pentatonic. And over C7 altered, we can play a G flat major pentatonic. In other words, on a 2-5, we can always play a chromatic ascending sequence. And we can target the third of the 1 chord, F6, which is an A natural, and then add a tail to target the 6th, like this. Let's play it in all keys. And finally, in step 6, let's do an entire G flat major pentatonic over C7 altered like this.